Welcome to Post-Crowdfunding Podcast, Mitchell. You've created a super cool product, Respira, which essentially purifies the air using plants. Can you give us a little bit of story behind the product? What got you interested to create it in the first place?
Absolutely, Bill, and good to be here. Good to connect with a fellow hardware entrepreneur. Uh, Not many people can relate with how difficult making a tangible product is, and excited to share some of the things we've been through as a company. So, Respira, actually, backing up a little bit, our company kind of got started with the mission to improve the health of the built environment, and our hardware product, which is Respira Home, was born out of the pandemic. We are a company that has been building living walls for a long time. And the number one question we always got asked was, wow, I'd love to get one of these in my home. And when everybody started spending more time at home, we thought, hey, let's test that feedback we've been getting and create something for people's homes that's affordable as far as living walls go.
That's so cool. So you essentially you did you um did you use that business to fund the initial R&D for Respira? Like, did you use the Greenwall business to fund it? Created like an ecosystem type of thing?
Exactly, yeah.
Nice.
We kind of always intended on designing and innovating within the living wall space. So
Mhm.
pretty much everything we were doing was reinvested back into the development of new products.
And I spoke to your partner Dylan about a year ago, and he did mention that you were doing door-to-door sales for solar panels, which is kind of relevant to eco-friendly. We're trying to get off grid, and then the transitioning from selling solar panels door to door to green walls, indoor green walls, to essentially creating a product. I mean, it must have been tough to transition to technology because it's a different ball game, right? Like technology, you're dealing with a lot of components, a lot of headaches, and do you have any engineering background that helped you? Can you walk me through the R&D phase of the product?
Yeah. So door-to-door sales had no relevant skills for developing technology, but it had a whole lot of transferable skills in terms of overcoming adversity and being persistent in achieving your goal. And I think that was really the reason we made it through. So the way that we were able to create something with no real hardware or technology background was through mentorship and connecting with people who had the skills necessary to develop something. So our team consisted of a third-party industrial designer who is world class, um, hardware and manufacturing mentors, and a team of ambitious uh, early stage employees who were part of a startup who, were willing to work those unruly hours. And there was some engineers on our team as well.
Wow, so cool. So how did you pay those salaries? Because a lot of entrepreneurs just getting started, they don't have enough capital to essentially open an office and start hiring people. What was your go-to strategy to raise enough money just to start hiring people?
So we had a little bit of money coming in through our living wall business.
Okay.
And really, the key for us was to have a year of financials where you can now start connecting with organizations who provide supplemental grant funding to students and people who qualify for um, wage subsidies. So the name of the game was resourcefulness, and whatever funding we could pull in to fuel people's salaries, that's what we did. And were people being paid handsomely? Absolutely not. But it was a fun team, and I think there was more value beyond the compensation.
And do you think it's essential to hire in-house versus outsourcing to Fiverr or Upwork? in your
I
experience?
don't think it's I I would say yes and no. I think a team is essential, both to have a culture and have accountability, to get things done. But it's not essential to have all of those skills in house, especially when typically, in my experience, we're a young team, so we didn't have a lot of experience or couldn't afford to pay for in-house experience. And if you don't have the work to support full time, it's always better to contract, and that's a big lesson that we've learned.
I see. Yeah, the thing is, like, as a hardware entrepreneur myself, when we developed our product, we went to Upwork to hire our first mechanical engineer as well as the electrical engineer. Actually, we still work with them to date, because
Nice.
when you outsource, it's much cheaper actually than hiring in house. We realized that the cost comparison is way too big, so we decided to do. Um, Offline, kind of like outsourcing all this work. The disadvantages was the time difference, of course, and then you've got the difference in the currency difference, and they have multiple projects that they're working on, so you're not a priority. Did you have any mechanical engineer and industrial designer, as well as uh, uh, the product design and electrical engineer as well? Did you have all those in house? I know you said you did hire a third party industrial designing company to do the design of the product.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, what about the
Yeah, so that was
electrical
third
kind?
party. The electrical and mechanical were in house. We have a team of 5 software, hardware,
Nice.
uh, employees. So that was a pretty large portion of the company that we were able to fund in house through, um, government funding and humble salaries, to be honest.
So you raised capital on Kickstarter. And that money that you raised, what was it? What was it mainly used for? We all know as hardware entrepreneurs that it's not enough to pay for tooling. Oh, it's not enough to pay for molds and none of that stuff, or R&D even. Uh, what was your strategy to? So you kept bringing in money from your other business, which is the Greenwall business, and you're funding those salaries. But how did you fund the prototyping iterations, the tooling, for example? Was that money from Kickstarter enough to essentially pay for it? And if you don't mind me asking, what was the amount you raised on Kickstarter? And did you do any Indiegogo campaigns or anything else?
The Kickstarter money was certainly not enough to like even get to the prototyping phase. Our experience with Kickstarter was that we needed to show something that worked and could be marketed in order to launch the campaign. So all of our videos were done with real prototypes and demonstrations. So that was all funded through our Greenwall business. And then when we launched Kickstarter, we raised just shy of a quarter million Canadian,
Mhm.
which was amazing. We were
Of
like,
course,
wow,
yeah.
people are willing to pay money for this, and we felt like that was some good traction. Everyone wants to go for the $1 million campaign, but
Yeah, it's not
we were
realistic.
yeah we were grateful for where we ended up, and so that money really went to funding inventory.
Oh wow,
And
okay.
yeah, so we pre-sold about 700 or 800 units, and our first run was 1,000. So our Kickstarter campaign, especially when you consider, there are fees to use Kickstarter, there's marketing dollars, and there's a lot of costs to run a campaign of that sort. It doesn't come close to funding the launch of a product, and we made up for that through continued sales through Indiegogo, which we didn't really push too hard on, but
Yeah.
we were able to continue selling. And then really we kind of leaned heavily on our core business, as a living wall company, to fuel the launch of this product. And I was constantly scratching my head when looking at other campaigns and other products, and I'd love to hear how you did it, because without some of these support mechanisms from the underlying business, I don't know how we would have ever delivered a product, um, or even launched on Kickstarter to begin with. So if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the tips and tricks that you had when you launched, I'd love to know.
Yeah, sure. First of all, you guys did the most brilliant thing that any entrepreneur could possibly do, which is create a cash flow stream through a relevant business, which is kind of odd. It's rarely ever happens where a business funds another business within the same line. It's really cool. Um, and the so what was the tooling cost like for you?
To date, we've spent close to $500,000 in
Half a
tooling,
million.
and yeah, so that is a combination. So we did something unique where we kind of used the Respira Home product and then expanded into a Respira Pro product, which uses some transferable parts. So we didn't have to retool everything, but um, we have quite a few tools for production at this point in time.
What was, um, when did you start certification process? Was it during the tooling, after the tooling, or during R&D phase? I mean, it's very costly, let's face it. And how many times did you have to
Mm-hmm.
change the product to get it certified?
Yeah, so we started certification during the campaign, and that was the biggest like you don't see some of these challenges coming. And for us, um, it was the Wi-Fi connectivity and kind of the frequency in which the unit produces was like just out of the range that would have passed all the tests. So we kept going back and had to do, redo the electricals and the wiring and come up with unique solutions for that. And it's a very costly endeavor as well. It was one of the largest costs associated with launching the product, and we thought we had to, and we believed it was worth it because we're doing this at scale. We want to have peace of mind that when it's in people's homes, it's going to be safe. In addition, we're selling in Europe, and CE certifications are a mandatory thing in order to import. So it worked out that we got the certifications, and um, yeah, there's a lot of unknowns associated with it that we had to overcome.
Did you use pre-certified modules, for example, for the Wi-Fi? Did you use pre-certified?
Yeah, everything was pre-certified
Okay.
and compliant. All the materials, but it's just when they all come together, then it starts creating different results in terms of the electrical performance. So
So
we
what?
didn't see
How
that
long
one
did the
coming.
certifications take?
It was about 2 or 3 months of
Two or
testing
three
in the
months.
lab.
Okay.
Uh, um,
What was the first production batch that you initially started with? Like we often talk about golden batch or whatever, but no one actually talks about how many units do I need to produce to make sure this product works and the manufacturer is trustworthy and they've got good components in there. How did you go about that part? What was your first production batch or test run, so to speak?
our fir- our first production batch was 1,000 units,
Okay.
and looking back on it, I would have done fewer. I would have paid extra and done a lower
Fewer.
volume run.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, fewer. Um, we were lucky in the sense that our system was designed to be modular. So any issues that we ran into with the system, we could just ship out spare parts, or and it was an easy fix. People didn't have to ship the entire unit back. It was very easy to replace. So that was, saving grace, because if we had issues like across that entire batch where they all had to come back, that would have been it. So for other entrepreneurs who are looking at, their first run, I would definitely recommend to do smaller batches, and the more batches that you can do, the better your product will become.
It's once you ship those units to the backers, what was the feedback you got from the first few backers? Was it positive? Were you scared? Were you worried, concerned?
It was really positive, and that is a blessing with Kickstarter community because people are more inclined to understand the journey of an entrepreneur, an early stage company. So, they congratulate you to have got the product to their door. And a lot of them have funded campaigns that don't get to that point. And when there are issues, they're more understanding, as long as, as the company will fulfill the obligation to help them out. So that was actually really great. And one of the most fulfilling things as the individual who's behind the design and the kind of concept and features, you believe in it, you're getting good feedback, but in the back of your mind, the validation isn't there until it's delivered. And to have positive feedback at that point was a huge weight off, and an amazing feeling.
That's so cool. Do you currently sell on Amazon, or is that something you would consider eventually?
It's something we would consider eventually. No, we're focused on e-com because we want to understand our customer, and we want to be more involved with our customer to implement features and really bring the product to a place that we think would be Amazon. Essentially, we don't want a single bad review on Amazon. And until we are at that point is when we would consider doing that. And that's not to say we have tons of problems in the product, but there's features that people desire that we need to roll out, and it's connected to Wi-Fi. So we're able to roll out software updates and create those features ongoing. So we're actually about to deploy a bunch of features that we feel. So here's another separate topic that I'm sure that you are familiar with, and I'd love to discuss, which is consumer feedback. And when all those units went out to market, we sent an email to everybody and said, hey, we'd love to get your feedback, after they'd been using it for about 6 months. And they were able to book calls with me. And I spend about 2 weeks every day, 8 calls a day, speaking with customers and taking all notes. What do you like? What don't you like? Why'd you buy it? If you could change one thing, what would it be? And after a while, you start seeing the commonalities and the things that people genuinely desire within the product. So now we have an improvements list, and it just moves you towards that end goal of having the product in its best form.
That's to get. Did you ever think I want to sell to retailers, to big box retailers?
Definitely. Every channel is something that's worth exploring, because you never know what the best fit will be. We secured a purchase order from a retailer in the Greater Toronto area. So we're about to roll out our units in a chain of garden stores. So we're very excited about that, to see how people engage with the product in person. it's a very visual product. So
Right. Right.
having a display unit and people able to interact with it will be, I think, in our benefit, in their benefit, and that's just actually being delivered today and tomorrow. Those first batches of units. So um, I'll follow up with you and let you know how it goes.
So what's next for Respira? Are you thinking to, go expand? So right now you're selling in Canada, United States, Europe, right? From a B2B standpoint, are you thinking more like gyms or yoga studios, hospitals, schools, etc.? Is that where you're headed towards?
So far, it's been a lot of institutional clients, so universities,
Okay.
government, and then below that would be our commercial clients, which is made up of offices, condo lobbies. Um, yeah,
What was your go-to strategy for that part? Is it cold calling or?
yeah, cold calling and referrals. This is where the door to door background, I guess, comes in handy, where we just call until we get a yes, and then when we deliver for the client and do excellent work, especially in the B2B side where you're dealing with contractors and architects who are all very connected, then you start creating a name and reputation in the industry. And we're thankful to have a good name and good reputation. So now we start kind of getting brought into projects where the concept's being discussed, and we'll come and consult and make sure that the design is well thought through to accommodate for not just a living wall, but a biological air filter. What
Oh, that's um the um how long did R&D take in your case? And if we can break down R&D and then we move on to tooling and certifications on from there.
Yeah, when I think about our R&D, I feel like it is a lot different than some of the other stories I hear. Our time in R&D was just over a year,
Oh wow.
which shocks a lot of people. To us, it was made sense because this was mid-pandemic, and when that happened, I actually moved in with my business partner, and these were very formative years for the company because you wake up, you you say hello to your business partner first thing in the morning, and you have a strategy session before you go to bed at night. So really all we did during the pandemic was work, and our industrial designer lived one block away from us just by chance. And we were exchanging 3D printed parts with masks on in the street, and every day we were progressing so much because it was total immersion into that world. Our kitchen had, electrical parts all taken apart on them, and prototypes in the living room, and plants all over the place. So I feel like we had an accelerated R&D phase.
Very cool. And the design for manufacturing, I did you work with the manufacturer to help you on that? Because designing for tooling is a slightly different than industrial design, right?
Yeah, our industrial designer had a lot of good experience with injection parts and metal
Mm.
parts, so they were designed for tooling. But our manufacturing partner would review the parts and say, hey, I think we can make these subtle changes, and make sure the draft angle is okay here, and we're able to get to an efficient part in production.
When you hire the third party industrial design, it's a company, right? I know these companies, they charge a lot of money to essentially
Mm-hmm.
even look at your project. because I've spoken to one long time
Mhm.
ago here in Toronto, and they wanted to charge more than 50K for the first draft. Um, do you recommend for entrepreneurs just getting started to go to these big companies who have experience with tooling and all that, or where do you see it working? Because obviously, if you don't have enough money to pay for like industrial designing company, uh, how do you manage to work around it?
I wouldn't. So, this is under the assumption that it's an individual who has an idea that they want to launch on a
Yes.
crowdfunding platform. I wouldn't approach a large company because you need deep pockets to do so. How I did it, which I think is what I would recommend doing, is to get in touch with an innovation hub near where you live and see if they can refer you to somebody in the local community who has that experience, or at least can provide guidance and point you in a couple viable options. That was, something that we could afford, and we got a really good result because of it. We did try going the Upwork route and finding industrial engineers, but through working with people overseas in such an intimate uh, phase of development, things often got missed, or the quality wasn't quite what was required. So that's kind of what I went through. I think another option is, if you can't pay for it, you learn it. And if you're that committed to bringing something to life, perhaps you take some classes on 3D model softwares and watch videos on how to do it yourself, and eventually put the time in to bring your vision to life.
And Innovation Hub, is it the like an accelerator program, or is it, what do you mean by Innovation
It's
Hub?
So there are these kind of innovation hubs located all across the Greater Toronto Area, and I believe they're all across Canada. And you can approach them to gain assistance and direction with a startup or your business. So our company was founded in Guelph, Ontario, and so we worked with Innovation Guelph, who introduced us to mentors, who then introduced us to our industrial designer. But there are other ones all over the place that would be the equivalent of that.
So you would Google innovation centers near me. Is that what you'd be looking for? Innovation centers?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. That's new to me. I didn't know. I knew about accelerators and incubator programs, but I didn't hear about innovation hubs. It's a fairly new. Is Mars considered an innovation hub? Mars?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I
Yeah.
see.
That I think that would be the equivalent for Toronto.
What's next for Respira? Where do you see yourself going or heading? In what direction?
I think really just expanding our um, our awareness of the product and focusing on impact and improving the health of the built environment through a connection to nature. We have, a product line of successful um, biological air filters that we're going to continue to develop and deploy in the markets that we're in right now. Our focus is on profitability at this point in time. So I can't see us coming out with anything brand new outside of the product streams that we have, unless it's complementary. The economic climate that we're in right now is more difficult than some others. So as a company, we've made the decision to focus on sales, expansion, profitability, and becoming a business that can stand on its own 2 feet. Launching a product is very costly, and you got to expose yourself to a lot of risk to do so. And we're now bringing ourselves to a point where we want those risks to pay off and to garner mass adoption of those technologies.
That's so cool. Do you see yourself, let's say, in the next 5 years, with a few product lines selling across the world, expanding, growing? Is that where you see Respira heading?
Absolutely. I think with the challenge of air quality, there are certain places in the world that have that where that's more of a problem than others, and that may cause us to expand very intentionally towards those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really the adoption of nature-based solutions will become more common, and we're excited to not only have that solution, but to be out in public and help maybe generate some ideas around how other people can use nature-based solutions in other applications, not just air quality. It could be a wide range of things.
And do you see Respira selling alongside commercial air purifiers like HEPA, um, like the Blue Air, the Dysons, the
Along
do
the
you
side
see
of
yourself selling in big box retailers next to these guys, or you're in a different market segment completely?
it's hard to say really. I think that we belong somewhere between smart gardens and air purifiers. It's like two different categories that have come together with our product, and the feedback that we've received isn't conclusive in terms of why people purchase the product. Some people love the hands-off gardening, other people are really concerned with air quality. So I do think there's a place for us, but it might be in between those two aisles. If I had to choose one, I would put us with um, the smart gardens, because it's such an engaging experience having the Respira unit in your home. I'm constantly coming home and checking for new leaves, and I have a personal relationship with it. The air quality thing is more of a feature on top of my garden at home. And I was going to say, on the commercial side, I do see us as an auxiliary component to traditional HVAC equipment. I think based on how building code is changing around indoor air quality, and the opportunity that exists with improving the efficiency of buildings with interior air purification, this will be a technology that can help achieve the goals of a lot of these real estate portfolios.
Do you do you ever see yourself kind of like venturing out of the air purification, getting into different industries, for example? And if yes, what would be the next thing you would like to get into?
The next thing I would like to get into is focusing on the ecology of urban areas. And it is kind of a vertical in the sense that we would be implementing nature into urban areas with intention of restoring the natural world and allowing it to work uh, in harmony with humans. I think that is something that really inspires me, and the next step would be to go from indoors to outdoors for our technology.
Uh, well, I appreciate your time on this. It's if you were to give an advice to an entrepreneur who is just getting started, what would it be?
Don't think too far ahead. If you knew all the challenges that you would face, you likely would never start. And just take it step by step.
Um, uh,